It is 11:42 a.m. The wedding begins at noon. Zara stands in the bridal suite in a dress and bare feet. Her custom-designed wedding gown, the one she designed herself, a stunning fusion of Ghanaian kente silk and Korean embroidery, is gone. The garment rack is empty. The suite attendant claims it was sent for steaming hours ago and never returned. Zara calls. No answer. She calls Jun-hyuk. Voicemail. A junior bridesmaid slides in a plain ivory backup dress 2 sizes too large, eyes avoiding hers. Zara knows. She already knows. But she puts it on. The ballroom of the Grand Yoon residence holds 300 guests. Politicians, investors, socialites, press. Zara walks the aisle in the wrong dress. Madame Yoon Cha-young stands at the front beside the officiant, not beside her son, and raises one elegant hand to stop the music. She speaks in Korean first, then English, for Zara's benefit. We must pause today's ceremony. After deep family reflection, we believe certain cultural foundations have not been sufficiently aligned. The Yoon family has decided this union requires more time. Gasps. Then silence. Then the slow, terrible sound of 300 people turning to look at Zara. Jun-hyuk stands at the altar. He does not move. He does not speak. His name has not been said yet. He sits in the last row. Charcoal suit, no tie, the kind of stillness that belongs to people who are never nervous. He was not on the guest list, a fact the venue coordinator notices too late. He holds no flowers, no program. He watches Madame Yoon the way a chess player watches an opponent make a move they think is brilliant. A slight tilt of his head, almost imperceptible. He does not intervene yet. He simply watches Zara hold her spine straight as the room unravels around her. When a guest near him whispers, "Who invited her anyway?" he turns to look at them, just looks. The guest goes quiet. Zara walks to Jun-hyuk. Quietly, close enough that only he can hear, she asks him one question. "Did you know?" The pause before his answer is 3 seconds long. The audience counts them. He says, "My mother only wants what's best." Zara steps back. She does not cry. She does not scream. She removes the engagement ring and places it in his palm with a precision that is more devastating than any outburst. The room sees this. The room understands. Madame Yoon's lip curls. A private victory. She begins to turn away. Seoul, 2019. Zara is 26, a junior architect on a short-term contract, barely covering rent. She is leaving a late site visit when she finds a man collapsed near the entrance of Sungmo Private Hospital, a foreigner's preferred facility with a strict pre-authorization policy. The man is semi-conscious, bleeding from a head wound, no Korean ID in his jacket. The front desk refuses entry without documentation. Zara watches the administrator turn away. She steps forward. She puts her own debit card on the desk, her emergency fund, 3 months of savings, and says, "He's with me, process it." She sits in the waiting room for 6 hours. She leaves only when a nurse confirms he is stable. She writes her name on a visitor badge and leaves it with the nursing station in case he wakes and asks. She never learns his name. She goes home and eats instant noodles because her account is now empty. The man is Seo Min-jae, 31. Third-generation heir to Seo International, hotels, infrastructure, logistics, a private equity arm operating across 9 countries. He had been in Seoul for an unannounced site inspection, no security detail, because he values anonymity. The head wound came from a mugging near the construction zone. No one from his office knew where he was. He was, for one night, simply a man no one would help, until Zara. He spends the next week in recovery. His team finds him. He gives them one instruction before anything else. Find out who she is. He is told she is a junior architect on a temporary contract. He nods. He puts the laminated visitor badge in his wallet. He does not call her. He does not send money. He simply begins watching, from a respectful distance, as she builds her life. The next 3 years, in brief, vivid strokes. Zara earns her full contract. She designs a cultural center in Incheon that wins a regional architecture prize. She meets Jun Hyuk at a client dinner. He pursues her with the kind of sincerity that feels real, because initially it is. She falls in love carefully, the way people do when they've never had a safety net. She builds a small but respected firm. She does not know that 2 of her biggest project approvals were quietly smoothed through a city planning contact, one who owes a favor to CO International. Min-jae never tells her. He simply removes small obstacles, invisibly. Madam Yoon discovers Jun Hyuk's relationship with Zara 18 months before the wedding. Her response is not emotional. It is architectural. She begins quietly. She contacts the board of a major Seoul development firm and suggests Zara's firm is financially unstable. A contract Zara was certain to receive disappears. She plants a rumor through her charity network that Zara had a cultural adjustment scandal at a previous firm. Vague enough to stick, specific enough to spread. She meets Zara exactly once in private and tells her with a warm smile, "I want Jun Hyuk to be happy. I hope you're truly what he needs." Then she goes home and makes 3 phone calls to dismantle Zara's next 18 months. Zara's firm begins hemorrhaging. 3 clients withdraw in 6 weeks, all citing vague direction changes. Her business partner, under financial pressure, dissolves their agreement. Jun Hyuk, pressured by his mother in private, begins working longer hours, taking more family dinners, becoming incrementally absent. Zara attributes it to wedding stress. She fires no one. She can't afford to. She takes on freelance work at night to cover payroll. She doesn't tell Jun Hyuk how bad it is. She doesn't want to seem fragile. This is the detail that will matter later. Her silence was not weakness. It was protection. In the present timeline, a frantic call backstage. The venue manager, Pale, informs Zara that her dress was signed out by a woman matching Madam Yoon's personal assistant's description the previous evening. It was taken to storage, a storage unit that does not belong to the venue. It cannot be retrieved in time. This was not carelessness. This was scheduled. Madam Yoon had the dress removed the night before, while Zara slept in the bridal suite trusting that the morning would come cleanly. The borrowed dress, the public pause, the cultural alignment speech, all of it was choreographed. The wedding was never going to happen. Back in the ballroom. With Zara standing alone and Jun Hyuk silenced, Madam Yoon steps fully into the moment. She moves through the room receiving quiet condolences and approving nods from her network. She finds a moment to stop beside Zara, just long enough to say in a murmur only Zara can hear, "You're a talented girl. You should go back to designing things. You were never going to fit here." She squeezes Zara's hand as she says it, like comfort. Then she moves on to greet a senator's wife. Min-jae walks forward. The room notices him the way rooms notice a change in air pressure, not through volume, but through gravity. He stops in the center of the aisle and speaks at a conversational volume that somehow silences 300 people. "I apologize for the interruption. I have a few things that require immediate attention." He produces a document from his jacket and hands it, not to Madam Yoon, but to her family lawyer, who goes visibly pale. A second document goes to the venue director. Madam Yoon turns. She does not recognize him immediately. Then she does. All color leaves her face. Someone near the front asks who he is. A guest behind them whispers the answer. The name moves through the room like a current. CO Min-jae. A reporter who crashed the society event instinctively raises their phone. Min-jae turns and looks at Zara. And for the first time in the whole story, his voice drops to something almost private. "She saved my life. I owe her more." The documents contain the following: the Yoon family's flagship hotel partnership, the one that represents 60% of their social credibility and 40% of their operating revenue, is held through a licensing agreement with a parent company. That parent company was quietly acquired by SEO International 14 months ago. The agreement contains a morality clause. Min-jae's legal team had already prepared the termination paperwork before the wedding day. The Yoon family lawyer reads it twice. His hands are not steady. He leans to Madam Yoon and says 4 words. The camera does not let us hear them. But we watch Madam Yoon's posture change, the first time in the entire story that she looks small. Within the hour, shown through a montage of private conversations at the edges of the ballroom, the machine Madam Yoon spent 2 decades building begins to fold. Her charity board co-chair receives a quiet call and steps away from their shared table permanently. 2 investors, who were her social satellites, begin moving toward exits. The senator's wife, who had smiled at Madam Yoon 20 minutes earlier, is suddenly very interested in the floral arrangements on the far side of the room. Jun-hyuk stands alone at the altar. No mother, no bride, no guests paying attention to him. And for the first time seems to understand what he participated in. Jun-hyuk approaches Min-jae and attempts a measured, face-saving conversation. Min-jae listens, then says, "I'm not your problem to solve. Go talk to her." Jun-hyuk finds Zara near the exit. He tries to explain his mother's pressure, his fear of losing the family business, his silence as self-preservation. Zara listens to all of it. Then, "You let her announce it to 300 people. You had months to choose differently. You chose every single time." She doesn't cry. She doesn't shout. She walks out of the building. This is not a love story about him. Madam Yoon stands in the emptying ballroom. The guests do not leave dramatically. They simply find reasons to go, one by one. The venue staff continues moving through the space with professional indifference. Her assistant cannot reach 3 of her board contacts. The hotel licensing termination will be processed Monday. There will be no jail, no scandal in the criminal sense, just the sudden, irreversible awareness that the architecture of her power was built on borrowed foundations, and the owner has called in the loan. She sits down in a ballroom chair in her couture dress, surrounded by flowers arranged for a wedding that ended before it began. No one comes to sit with her. Min-jae finds Zara on the rooftop terrace of the venue. She went up not to be found, but because she needed sky. He brings 2 glasses of water. Not champagne, not a grand gesture, water. He sits at a distance. She asks why he came today. He says, "I've been waiting for the right moment for 5 years. I was afraid I'd waited too long." She asks how he knew about the wedding. He is quiet for a beat. Then, "I've known about most of the important things in your life for a while. I know how that sounds. I need you to know it was never intrusion. It was debt that I didn't know how to repay without it seeming like something else." He reaches into his wallet. Inside, behind everything else, laminated and worn at the edges, is a small hospital visitor badge. Her handwriting, her name, the date, November 2019. He has carried it for 5 years. He sets it on the table between them without explaining further. The object speaks. Zara picks it up. She remembers writing it. She remembers being afraid she'd spelled the nurse's transliteration wrong. She remembers going home to empty noodles. She looks at him. "You kept this." Not a question. He nods once. "It was the first time in my adult life that someone helped me with nothing to gain. I didn't know what to do with that except refuse to forget it." Quietly, methodically, Min-jae explains some, not all, of what he did in the years since. The planning contact who approved her Incheon permit on a tight timeline. The anonymous recommendation letter that unlocked her regional prize nomination. He is careful to clarify, "I never manipulated your work. I only moved the bureaucracy that was already in the way. Every design decision, every award, that was yours." He pauses. "I did nothing about Madam Yoon until the day she crossed a line I couldn't watch from a distance." Zara asks what the line was. He says, "The dress. When I found out about the dress." This is the scene where Min-jae, who has dismantled a family empire without blinking, cannot fully answer a simple question. He says, "Because you would have felt indebted. And I never wanted that. You didn't save me so you could receive something. I didn't want to reduce it into a transaction. He looks out over the city. And I wasn't sure what I felt was appropriate. You were building a life. I didn't have the right to interrupt it. Zara is quiet for a long time. Then, you interrupted it today. A beat. Yes, he says. I decided that was better than watching you disappear into something that was going to keep erasing you. 48 hours later. Madame Yoon's hotel partnership termination is confirmed in the business press, framed as a strategic restructuring. But the Seoul social network reads it correctly. Her charity board announces a leadership transition. Jun-hyuk quietly releases a statement that the wedding has been called off. He does not blame Zara. He does not blame his mother. It is the most honest thing he has done in the whole story, and it is also too late and too small. Zara's architecture firm receives 2 new project inquiries, referrals she didn't generate herself, from developers who want to be associated with the name that Seo Min-jae publicly defended. She takes a meeting. She designs something. Zara does not run to Min-jae. She calls him once. She tells him she needs time to understand which parts of the last 5 years were hers and which parts had his fingerprints on them. He says, fair. She asks if he'll be patient. He says, I've been patient for 5 years. I'm very good at it. She laughs, the first time we've heard her laugh in the whole story. It is a small, real sound. She hangs up. She puts the visitor badge on her desk. She opens her design software. She begins a new project, one no one assigned her. Something she's wanted to build for 3 years. A community arts center. She names the file, November 2019. Madame Yoon moves through her days in a city that has quietly rearranged itself around her absence. Invitations slow. The charity gala she chairs is absorbed into another organization, efficiently without ceremony. She has money. She has her house. She has Jun-hyuk, who visits on Sundays and brings food and speaks carefully. She is not broken. But the architecture of her dominance, the thing she spent 30 years engineering, is gone. She sits in her garden one evening and her assistant, the only person still loyal, asks what she'd like for dinner. She says, whatever there is. This is, without comment, the smallest we have ever seen her. A brief sequence in Min-jae's world. Board meetings he enters and entire rooms recalibrate. A rival company's acquisition attempt that evaporates overnight after a single call from his legal team. An interview request from a major publication. Declined. A dinner with 3 government officials who want something from him. He listens, says almost nothing, and leaves. In every setting, he is controlled, minimal, slightly opaque. Then, he returns to his office, and on his desk is a new architectural sketch, emailed from Zara, asking his opinion on the community center's entrance facade. He looks at it for 10 minutes. He writes back 4 sentences. Detailed, considered, architecturally specific. He knows buildings. He has always known buildings. This is something she didn't know about him. Thursday dinner, rooftop restaurant, simple, no performance. They are not a resolved couple. They are 2 people who are beginning something with the full weight of 5 years between them, which is both a gift and a complication they will spend a long time sorting through. The evening is warm. The conversation is real. At the end of the night, Min-jae's phone buzzes once. He glances at it. Something in his expression changes. Barely, but Zara catches it. She asks, "What?" He considers, then turns the phone so she can see. A brief message from his chief of security. Yoon Cha-young met privately this week with representatives of the Daesung Group 3 times. The Daesung Group is Seo International's largest and longest-running rival, known for operating in the space where law ends and influence begins. Min-jae pockets his phone. He looks at Zara. He says, "Nothing you need to worry about tonight." She holds his gaze. But eventually, he doesn't look away. Eventually, yes. The city glitters below them. Somewhere across it, a black car idles outside a building neither of them can see. Inside, a woman in couture is making a phone call. She is smiling again. The the world is bigger than this victory, and she is not finished.